You might have heard the phrase winning solves everything. Well, Kyle Larson knows that firsthand. Some good news today was announced that solidifies his future not only at NASCAR but with Hendrick Motorsports. We also got some talk about Kurt Busch and his future. And of course, we got another update regarding the next gen car. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Lines. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day. My name is Jet. Let's not waste any time and jump into it with our first story revolving around Kurt Busch. Now, if you don't know already, if you've been living under a rock, Kurt Busch is going to be a free agent at the end of this season after Chip Ganassi sold their team to Trackhouse. Now, it was kind of interesting how this all went down was because Kurt was in the process of signing an extension with Chip Ganassi Racing, I believe as late as a week before the announcement, before Kurt got the call from Chip and said, hey, sold the team now, so you're now going to be a free agent. Now, obviously, based off his win last weekend at Atlanta, Kurt Busch still knows how to win in the Cup Series. And he's going to be a hot free agent by the end of this season. Now, the many reports suggesting he could go to two places. Trackhouse, which a team he has had talks with, or 23XI Racing with Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. But there also could be a third option. He sat down in an interview for Barstool Sports for the Rubbins Racing podcast, and he talked about his future in 2022.
I was talking with Justin Marks with Trackhouse, been talking with Denny and Jordan about 23XI, Chevy, Ford, Toyota, doing things behind the scenes and not necessarily racing, but doing things with the simulator and the modeling and such. And then the Jeff Gordon announcement, he just said, hey, I'm headed back to Hendrick to go run the program. And there's a possibility of being a broadcaster with Fox. So I'm exploring that option too. So it's pretty wild. I'm on a high right now. I'm on a cloud that's just kind of floating. We're going to take it to New Hampshire and try to win this weekend. And then I've got 2 weeks off where I think I'll get everything sorted out.
So yeah, that is a possibility. Now, the only way I could see Kurt going to the booth next season is if he wants to go to the booth. But I don't think that's really likely because I think we've heard Kurt say multiple times he wants to race the next gen car and wants to keep racing. He's clearly going to be in a seat next season. I think it'd be stupid to pass up on Kurt Busch, especially considering the fact that he's an equipment that, yes, it's a Chevrolet, and they haven't been as good. CGR has been in NASCAR at all, but still, he's able to put out good runs. The last 5, 6, 7 races, he has put up some consistent numbers, including his win at Atlanta. It would just be bizarre, weird, and just overall dumb of someone to pass up on a guy like Kurt Busch. And I think him going to Trackhouse or 23XI Racing, they're all likely options. I think those are the only two options that I could see Kurt Busch landing in 2022. Yes, there is a possibility, small chance, he might go to the broadcast booth, but that's only if Kurt wants to. There are teams out there that I'm pretty sure lining up to give Kurt a ride. Who knows? Kurt probably already has a ride and we just don't know about it yet. I think he might go to 23XI Racing because I've heard talks of Trackhouse not even considering Kurt or Ross Chastain because Chastain was also an option for Trackhouse and they might just pick someone else out of the blue. Yeah, that's just a little update for all you Kurt Busch fans. The full podcast for the Barstool Rubbins Racing show, that's going to come out later this week. Now let's move on to our next story and we're talking about, of course, the next gen car. It has been in the news a lot this weekend and not for any good reasons. Skepticism, confusion, frustration between NASCAR and the drivers in terms of communication. I already talked about this on my last video. Want to check it out? You can click the card on the top right of the screen. That talked about the whole lack of communication between NASCAR and the drivers regarding the next gen car. So yeah, it's still expected to be out and ready for the 2022 Daytona 500. Even after all the concerns and confusion and rumors swirling around, they're expected to be released and ready to go for the 500 next season. Again, we're going to take two clips from the Atlanta bullpen over the weekend from Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin that both talked about the safety concerns. And again, just want NASCAR to clarify with them on what is going on.
You know, the only thing, I think, as we sat in the drivers meeting that NASCAR had with us to show us everything, I think that the most frustrating part of the whole process is the fact that the safety piece to the drivers and the conversation with the drivers, which was asked for by the drivers, was had at the very end of everything. And, I think as you look at that, I think it's just I think the guys driving the cars are owed at least the respect enough to at least be a part of the process of what's going on. But I think it's that and the racetrack, and I think everybody's a little bit frustrated with just how all that's been handled. Seeing NASCAR's presentation and the things that they've done with the car is very impressive, and the data and all the things that go with that is very impressive in how they lay the crashes out and the simulation that they have. I think it's just when the drivers were a part of the process, is why everybody's a little bit frustrated with that. So, and here we are, we're supposed to go to Bristol in a month with our car to do a tire test and can't get chassis. Chassis are held until the crash testing is done.
We had a good meeting with NASCAR again. This is a few weeks ago. I think it was documented about the meeting, and I think a lot of it, that meeting was spurred on, the drivers getting together and saying, anything that's stiffer, the softest object's going to take the biggest brunt. And so I told the drivers, you better get together and you better gather some questions that you want to ask. And NASCAR did their, we submitted our questions, and they had some time to prepare, their answers for those questions, and some of them they still had to get answers to. And a lot of it was, what does a real crash test look like? Because everything had been done in simulation. Simulation, while very, very good, it's still not the real thing. And so we were, eagerly awaiting what the results were going to be from the June 30th test. I guess it was the 23rd, then it got pushed to the 30th. But ultimately, we haven't got the results back. But, so I guess there's rumors start from people that are probably kind of close to it. And, it doesn't sound great. But again, there's no hard data, but I would assume if things went fantastic, we would have heard about it pretty soon. No aspect and no, angle should it ever be worse than what we're currently racing, because we don't want injuries to be part of our sport. Ultimately, you really want to mess this thing up, start having a bunch of concussion injuries and broken bones, this thing can go downhill pretty quick. And so I think that, they'll be pretty smart in making sure that, the data supports and they feel like it's a car that they feel comfortable putting themselves in. For the drivers, they deserve to know what they're getting strapped into, and hopefully, we don't race it until it's, at least better than what we got. The numbers will come back when we crash at Daytona, right? The moment we crash and everyone's like, oh my God, that's worse. Like, that will confirm or deny, results that are proven. So you're not going to be able to fudge numbers, but I do trust them, and I trust the doctors and whatever they recommend.
Well, we did get an update from Scott Miller, who is the Senior Vice President of Competition at NASCAR, gave an interview on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio yesterday, clearing up the confusion about the safety concerns with the next-gen car.
There's a lot of fiction out there, and what everybody has to realize is that our normal safety testing procedure at the laboratory, so to speak, the proving grounds where we typically set up our impacts and get the data, that was done differently because of COVID and because of the backlog at that facility. So we went and we did that test at Talladega at a real racetrack. So what everybody needs to understand is when we were able to do that testing and any safety testing that we do, there are reams of data that come off of that. And we, as far as the time frame goes, it always takes a while to piece together a complete report on what we saw in a crash. So it's not like anybody should have expected that we would go crash that car and look at a couple of graphs and say, hey, we're done analyzing this data. We see absolutely nothing in the data that's alarming, but we want to have a comprehensive report. And I have no idea how all of the rumors started about that it didn't go well, because it did go well. So that's where we are, and hopefully we can get that report out. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to John and seen where they are with that and, it being presented to everyone. But, it shouldn't be too much longer, but to expect that was going to happen in a day or two was unrealistic to begin with. And maybe we should have communicated that better up front. It's not like because it's taken time, it's not good. That's obviously how all the rumors get started. So we might have should have told everyone up front, don't expect a comprehensive report because it takes time. So that's where we are with that.
One more thing tied to that. So there's no punting the car until 23 or all that stuff.
Sir.
Things, timelines are still on as they should be.
Absolutely.
Again, now NASCAR did say that they should have been more upfront with the drivers, and at least with the drivers. Again, you don't have to be upfront with the fans. We can do whatever, but be upfront with the drivers at least. And I think the reason why it's taking so long is because, again, this is the first time that the next gen car is going to be built based off of outside sources. With the previous generation of cars, it was built in-house. NASCAR designed it, they build it. NASCAR or the NASCAR teams, they design chassis themselves and things like that. Well, now you have to buy it from someone else, or you have to wait for them to be ready in order for you to get your chassis. Now, many people are speculating, is the car behind on schedule? Are they trying to rush it? Like, what is the status of the next gen car? We know, according to Scott Miller, that apparently the test went great, or the crash test went well. Okay, but is the car still behind schedule? Because again, remember, Kevin Harvick just said he has to go out for a test at Bristol in about a month or so, and still can't get chassis. So where is the status on the timeline of the next gen car? Depending on the news, and again, we're just going on based off what we know, I could see two things happening in 2022. Number one, we could see more than likely the next gen car be rolled out for the full season in 2022. That's what I think is going to happen more than likely. NASCAR for 2022 full-time season, next gen car. Or depending on the status of the next gen car, and if it is behind schedule, we could see NASCAR pull a 2007 move on us. If you don't remember, in 2007, NASCAR ran two cars. The Gen 4 car, the car yesterday for, I believe it was for 20 races, and they also ran the COT car, the Gen 5 car, for 16 races in the same season. And the first 3 or 4 races of the Gen 5 car were on short tracks. The first race was at Bristol, I think in race 7, then Martinsville and Richmond. I believe those were the first 3 races. Now, this is just going based off what we know. What we know, the fans know, what we know, and apparently maybe to the drivers, they assume that NASCAR is behind on schedule with the next gen car. Now, there could be a possibility that NASCAR is just keeping everything indoors and they are ready to be rolled out in time for the 500. That could be the possibility. But the fact that, again, it's not the fans. Those fans don't need to know about it, but the fact that the drivers still don't know is quite concerning. Not much on the safety aspect, but just still on the timing on the next-gen car getting built and ready for distribution to the other teams. Now, the two drivers like Denny and Kevin, they are a bit concerned about the delay and the waiting and the confusion with the next-gen car. Some drivers like Mark Truex Jr. and Christopher Bell are a bit they're not as outspoken like Kevin and Denny was. They're kind of still in the middle. But then you have a driver like Michael McDowell, who won the 500 this year. He's not too worried at all. And in fact, in his mind, NASCAR is not supposed to be safe. In a quote during the media bullpen, he said, "It's not supposed to be safe. The danger is part of the thrill of racing. That's the difference between sitting in the stands and sitting in the race car. If it's just as safe for me to sit in the stands as it is to sit in the race car, then you don't need me to drive a race car." Now, when he said this, a lot of people took it the wrong way. I understand what he's saying. I think he just said that very wrong. He said it bluntly, kind of like saying it's not supposed to be safe. In a way that we're supposed to have the chance to get hurt. That's how. If you look at it from face value, you assume he's trying to say, "Oh, we're supposed to get hurt. It's racing. What do you expect?" What I think he's trying to say is that no matter how safe you make racing, it'll never be 100% safe. And that is true. That is true. It doesn't matter how safe you make the sport, you're never going to be 100% safe when you're racing at speeds of over 180 miles an hour. It's just things can happen. But I think that is what he was trying to say. But again, if you look at it on face value, it makes it seem like who cares about safety? It's racing. You can get hurt. Deal with it. It'll be weird for him to say that, considering the fact that, if you remember back in 2008 at Texas, he had a horrendous crash, and I'm pretty sure because of the Gen 5 cars, the reason why he got out alive and walking away unscathed. I think if he crashed in the Gen 4 car, it'd be a completely different story. So I don't think people should assume that McDowell doesn't care about safety. I think he does, but he could have worded it just a little bit better. Yeah, I'm not going to discuss any further about this because, again, at this point, it's all just speculation. Where is the status of the next-gen car? Is it ready? Is it on schedule? Is it not? Does NASCAR have to pull a 2007 move on us or what? I heard some people might say, push it back to 2023, which that'll never happen. That's not even going to be a consideration because of the fact that many teams have already either A, stopped distribution on the Gen 6 car, or B, already sold some of their chassis because they're not going to need them anymore. If you push the next-gen car back to 2023, well, then now all the teams are going to have to figure out a way to try and get ready for next season when you've already sold majority of your parts and your people for the Gen 6 car. It's just going to cause a lot of confusion. So those are the two situations I see happening for next season. Either full-on next-gen car for full 36 races or 38 races if you include the exhibition events, or 2007, where 20 races with the Gen 6 and 16 for the next-gen car. But we'll just have to wait and see. And finally, Kyle Larson. Larson, he's had an eventful 2021 season so far. Won, 4 or 5 races so far? 3 points away from the regular season championship battle between him and Denny Hamlin. Arguably the hottest driver in NASCAR right now. Well, he just got some more good news. He is staying put at HMS and got a 1-year extension through the 2023 season. Now, many people were wondering, how will sponsorship work? It's like, yes, Larson, he's going to drive the 5 car, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the dollars. How will Hendrick take care of that? Well, apparently, Hendrick Cars is going to sponsor Chase Elliott, is going to sponsor Kyle Larson the entirety of this season, next season, and 2023, all but one race. That race will go to Valvoline. Now, the reason why they picked Hendrick Cars to sponsor the entire season, really, is because the relationship between Larson and HendrickCars.com is working really well for the company. Rick Hendrick told AP his marketing team at Hendrick Motorsports was actively selling Larson's sponsorship and had offers, but the team owner halted all conversations when his automotive group said it wanted the ad space. Rick Hendrick said that he bumped it up about 20% once the HendrickCars.com automotive group committed. We had one deal for the whole thing, so I made them step up and at least match the offer, and they did. They want as much as they can get. Daryl Jackson, who is the VP of Financial Services for the Hendrick Automotive Group, he said that he told the AP that since the relationship was announced between Larson and HendrickCars.com back in February, that the traffic for the website has exploded. 5 of the 6 highest traffic days this year followed races in which Larson contended with the website as his sponsor. He's created a total lead generation value of $1.8 million and over $5 million in television exposure, and we haven't even gone to the playoffs yet. Brian Johnson, who's a VP of marketing of Hendrick Automotive Group, also continued to talk about how Larson has helped elevate HMS, or at least the Hendrick Cars Automotive Group. He said here that Kyle has elevated our business platform in such a tremendous way that this makes sense. As someone who is responsible for our advertising spend, and all things have remained equal except for the addition of Kyle. I don't know how else you could correlate what he's doing for the company. Now, Kyle Larson had his own statement on this extension deal. He said, quote, I want to be at Hendrick for the rest of my career, and if I can have the sponsorship attached to me, I think that goes a long way for my brand and my fan base. Someday, when I'm retired from Cup and only racing dirt cars, maybe they can back me there too. I feel like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. Now, to give you an idea on how much Larson has helped the Hendrick Automotive Group and HendrickCars.com, this tweet was put out by Bob Pockers, and it says, according to Hendrick, since sponsoring Larson, HendrickCars.com has seen increases in overall traffic up 27%, vehicle sales leads up 18%, digital retail leads up 37%, and trade evaluations up 61%. Incredible numbers from HMS, or from Hendrick Automotive Group and Kyle Larson. I've always said this. It's not just in racing, but in sports in general. Winning solves everything. If you're winning and contending for wins week in and week out, contending for championships, you're going to get sponsors, or eventually the money will start to roll back in. A lot of people were wondering, whether with Larson and the whole deal with last year, if anyone would ever sponsor him. I always thought somebody's going to sponsor him. If Larson's winning, somebody will sponsor him. And would you look at that? He's winning races, and now he's got sponsors. He's also had secondary sponsors like Metrotech Automotive that was sponsored his car in the Coke 600, Valvoline who sponsored at Nashville, and Tarleton who has been on Kyle Larson's car for majority of the 2021 season. And yeah, this is big for Larson because now he's fully sponsored. Now he doesn't have to worry about trying to get more sponsors to come into the fold. And it's kind of shocking how much they've stepped up to the plate. HMS has, or I keep on saying HMS, but Hendrick's Automotive Group has stepped up to support Larson. Now, what's also cool about this Larson-Hendrick Cars relationship is that it's going to extend beyond NASCAR. The deal is going to also sponsor Larson's non-NASCAR events, in which the branding on the nose of his dirt cars, helmets, gloves, and fire suits will all have Hendrick Cars on it. And yeah, I think this makes Larson now one of few companies in NASCAR today that majority of the races are sponsored by one company. Hamlin and FedEx, well, now Kyle Busch and maybe the Mars brand at least, with M&Ms and Skittles, Ally and Alex Bowman's in full season. And now Larson really has two huge sponsors behind them, and he's fully funded. 35 for Hendrick Cars and 1 for Valvoline from now until the end of 2023. So good news for Larson. Winning solves everything. And yeah, that's going to conclude this episode of Inside Lines. Guys, tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on any of the stories that I talked about? Don't forget, of course, to leave a like and subscribe for more content. But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see y'all next time.